And record. Awesome, awesome. All right, all right. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. My name is Jared Sawyer Jr. I'm the president and CEO of YPP. For those of you who don't know, YPP stands for You Power Purpose. It's more than an organization, but we are a movement of next generation leaders that have decided to live on purpose, live with purpose, live by purpose in each and every area of our lives. And started this organization, started this movement in 2017 after I realized that there are a lot of people that are living their entire life never discovering their purpose. And so I said, let's bring together young people all over this country who have made the decision that purpose has to be before anything else that we do. It has to be the base of our mobility. And ever since, we have established membership all over this country in all 50 states, 7 countries. And actually, next month, well, technically 2 months from now, the top of December, we'll be going to the Dominican Republic to even open up our 8th representation of YPP in another country in the Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo. And so we're growing as an organization, as a movement. And what I like to do is to connect next generation leaders who are already out there doing amazing things at a top tier level and are mentors to amazing people with those who are right at the bottom of the tracks trying to travel and trying to maneuver through this journey that we call life, and to really pass the peace and to pass the knowledge. And so I'm going to be your presenter tonight. I want to welcome you all to the Thursday night momentum webinars. We do these every single week, every single Thursday at 10 p.m. We don't do them over the summer, and so it's really exciting to bring back this quarter. We had our first Thursday night momentum webinar last week, and our state president for the state of Florida, Prince Wright, was our host, and we had some amazing speakers on there. And today I'm excited to be your presenter tonight, to be the host of Thursday night momentum webinars, or of our Thursday night momentum webinar rather, for tonight. The vibes are high. The season of harvest is nigh. We're getting ready to come into this winter season, and there's a lot of positive energy in the atmosphere as we get ready for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. I hope everyone is nice, safe, and sound wherever they respectively are. I'm right here in Atlanta. The lights just went out a couple of maybe about 30 minutes or so before we ended up getting on this webinar. But we're going to have an awesome time tonight. So tonight I'm going to be giving you some very valuable information and bring forth some speakers, some of which you know, others of which you'll be introduced to, who I have been personally impacted by, along with thousands of other people all over this country, all over this world. And I believe that tonight your life is going to be transformed for the greater. I believe that nobody on this webinar, just like in the past, will leave the same way that they came. And so I'm super excited to share this moment with you. We're going to be doing something a little bit different, which is the reason why we didn't really promote it as hard. We're going to actually be uploading this on YouTube as well for those who are not able to come on the webinar. We'll be uploading this on YouTube, and so it'll be our first time doing that and seeing how that works out for those who were not able to come onto the webinar. So first things first, let me go ahead and drain the swamp. Let me go ahead and make sure that the right people are on this webinar. This webinar tonight is for dreamers, it's for visionaries, it's for entrepreneurs, people who are looking to do more, to be more, to become more, people who are looking to work for themselves and not just for others, people who want to go from their bank accounts being overdrafted to entering into a surplus, people who want to go from doing just enough to doing more than enough. I believe that with the information that you're going to be learning tonight from our speakers, that you're going to go from living with dreams to living out your dreams. All of us on this webinar, we started at the top of this year in 2019 with the same dogma at the beginning of the year. This is my year. This is my year. This is my year. But tomorrow's November the 1st. The question that you've got to ask yourself tonight is, what have you done differently this year that you've done what have you done differently this year versus last year? What are you doing? Have you decided to make the last 2 months of the year worth your while? Have you decided to make the last 2 months of your year worth your while? I believe that it doesn't matter where you are tonight. It doesn't matter what you've got going on in your life. I'm going to be giving you the tools and the resources to go forth and change your life for the sake of everyone else around you and for your sake. And it's not going to be coming from me, but it's going to be coming from my fellow brothers and sisters who are out here doing some amazing work. And we're going to pass the peace. So we're going to talk tonight about a very, very interesting topic. The truth will set you free. We're going to be talking about engaging truth. We're going to be talking about engaging truth. And all of our speakers have a very interesting story about what that looks like. Well, first things first, I'm going to go ahead and give you my story as I do for each webinar. And so that way we're not total strangers. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Sawyer Jr. My journey started in ministry at the age of 5 years old. It was when I accepted my call into the gospel ministry and got licensed and ordained shortly afterwards. And I've been on the road doing the work of God ever since. But I knew that God called me not just to ministry, but to help other people discover their purpose. And so I started this organization, You Power Purpose, and have been focused on youth empowerment and youth enrichment over the course of the past 10 years of my life since I was 12 years old, and I'm 22 years old now. I love God. I love God's people, and I love to lift up the next generation. And I spread a message that age is nothing but a number and that we're all empowered to do great things in this world. And so tonight we're going to be talking about engaging truth. We've all heard it before. The truth will set you free. This webinar is tailored to discuss how to discover the most magnificent version of yourself possible. How to discover the most magnificent version of yourself possible by engaging the truth. Oftentimes we ignore the truth about ourselves, because what I've discovered is that many times we don't even like spending time with ourselves, right? We don't like spending time with ourselves. We're not really comfortable doing that. It doesn't make all of the sense in the world for that, right? We were given all the money in the world right now to go and travel. We wouldn't want to go and travel by ourselves, not particularly because of we could go into the most safe region in the world, but we love to travel in companionship. We love to live in companionship, and that's all wonderful. But we do have to spend a little bit of time with ourselves, by ourselves, in order for us to engage our truth, because until we discover the truth about ourselves, we'll be kept in some sort of bondage, some sort of bind that we don't even recognize or identify until we realize the evidence of what we've heard all of our life, that the truth will set us free, because it does set us free. It sets us free to go forth and to really accomplish our dreams. It will set us free from fear. Truth will set us free from fear. Truth will set us free from a whole lot of things. And so that's what we're going to be talking tonight, is about engaging truth. So tonight we've got some really, really great people on with us tonight. We've got Elder Elisha Drain, who's the author of Life Is, and a business leader. We've got attorney Brian Poe, who's the managing partner at Poe Simpson Law. And last but not least, we've got Bree Singleton, who's promotions coordinator and on-air talent at Radio 1. And we're not going in that order. We're actually going to start off with Bree Singleton. I'm going to go ahead and read you her bio, and then I'm going to share with you personally about her and what I have come to experience about her. I'm going to go ahead and read you just a little bit about who she is. Bree Singleton is the young, multi-talented, and ambitious new addition to the Praise 102.5 roster. She brings new energy to the airwaves and serves as the voice of the youth, a sporty, quick-witted go-getter. Her passion is helping to develop well-rounded individuals in the classroom as well as on the court or field. Bree is in tune with the latest in all things media, television, sports, politics, etc. And you can catch Bree on Lit Nights with Ed on Praise 102.5. So, Bree, welcome to the Thursday Night Momentum webinar. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely, Jared. Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I first got a chance to meet you last year at Praise in the Park. I was backstage, and it was a lit event. I love Praise in the Park. It was the biggest gospel concert in the country, and I love it because it's like a big gospel family reunion.
Absolutely.
And so I really, really loved it. And I was backstage, and I see you running around getting things done. And you're making sure things are done over here, and people are reporting to you for next steps and when things are going right or when things are going wrong. And I notice those things You know, I notice those things as a young millennial. I look out for other young millennials who are just out there kind of running the show and getting the job done. And I came up to you and I said, "What's your name?" And you told me your name, and I said, "What do you do here?" And then you told me, and you know, I still haven't asked you how old you are, and you can share with everyone if you feel led to do so by the Holy Ghost, to share you know, how old you are. But I knew that you were young, and I said, what you bring to the table immediately, you know, what I noticed was confidence. And I said, this confidence that you have has to have been one of the greatest assets that has brought you before great men and women and put you in the place that you are, where not only, you know, not only do you have a prominent position with Radio 1 Atlanta, but you also are now a radio personality on Praise 102.5. Where does that confidence come from?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for your kind words. I'm 24 years old, by the way, not ashamed
Wow.
of that. So yeah, thank you. But it's funny because that confidence has not always been there. It's definitely something that I've had to work on and work through. I played sports from a very, very young age, played basketball, and it ended up being the source of a lack of confidence for me in sometimes. So in young adulthood and through my teenage years, I've had to change the way I speak to myself, change the way I see myself, change the way I go about things. But since I've built it up to the point that it's at now, my confidence has been in Jesus Christ. I've noticed a gift that he's placed in me. And the work that he's doing in me gives me confidence to do what I'm able to do. So whether that be running Praise in the Park, starting at 22 years old, the biggest gospel festival in the country, to being on the airwaves on Praise 102.5, the largest gospel inspiration station in the entire world. It's just been a product of figuring out what God has in store for me, and then acting in that purpose and realizing that, hey, you know, this space is for you. He wouldn't place you here if he didn't feel like you didn't belong. So just building on that and giving myself the freedom to be great. I think that's where that confidence comes from.
Wow. And that's powerful what you said. You know, God would not put you in a place that you do not belong, right? Absolutely. That should give us the confidence right then and there at the base of what we do. How did you make it to where you are as a young person, 24 years old, working in the field of entertainment, working in the field of media? I mean, you at this point get a chance to connect with some of the most influential people in entertainment and media, not just every once in a while, but every single day.
Absolutely.
How did you get here?
I would just say it's a testament to hard work. I went in to college kind of pretty much knowing the path that I wanted to take career-wise. I went to the University of West Georgia, graduated in the spring of 2017. But before I graduated, I got an internship with the same company that I work with now, Radio 1 Atlanta. So through that internship, I was able to kind of get a sneak peek into the industry and into the field of work that I chose. And then from there, it's pretty much just been a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, you know, having to say no to a lot of different things, because I had the foresight to see where it could take me. If I decide to say no to this now, I'm going to get that yes that I want later. So just keeping that in mind and pressing forward, it's much easier to not be distracted when you're working towards something that you believe in. So when you have that in mind and you have that goal and you see it through, it's just become that much easier for me. So just working hard and building genuine relationships. I think a lot of young folks today get bombarded with the idea of networking, and, you know, you've got to meet people. It's always who you know, not necessarily what you know. But I think a lot of young folks tend to kind of keep surface relationships. You know, they follow someone on social media, X, Y, and Z. But I actually took the time to build up some genuine relationships. And from those relationships, I got opportunities, I got mentors, you know, and it's just been up from there.
What does real mentorship look like? What does real mentorship look like? Because you mentioned something that I don't want us to particularly get past too quick, but it's so important, like you said, really building real relationships, valuing relationships with people. What
Mhm.
does real, and I think this is something that's going to really help out our members with YPP, because like you said, we get kind of caught up with the thought of networking. And I meet a lot of people, so people reach out to me all the time. Can you mentor me? Can you mentor me? And I'm like,
Right,
okay, what are you looking for out of a mentor?
right, right,
Right?
right. Yeah.
What should you be looking for out of a mentor?
Okay, so it's definitely a two-way street. So I'm at a point in my life right now where I've been blessed with multiple mentors, and now I am using that to then become a mentor myself. So with that perspective, it's a two-way street. So when you're looking for a mentor, it can be as simple as finding someone who carries themselves the way that you would like to carry yourself. You can find someone who is doing exactly what you want to be doing in a career path, or just find someone who has the resources that you would like to turn into your own. And then from there, you seek them out, you let them know what your goal is. And it's very important because a lot of people who you think want to, who you think you want to be their mentor, or you want them to mentor you, they might not be in the space to provide you that at that moment. So it's
Mm.
connecting with people who are where you want to be and who then want to pour into you. So it's a two-way street. You've got to be willing to give and to receive. But yeah, it's just finding someone who's doing exactly what you want to be doing, letting them know what your goal is, and then praying over the relationship and hoping that God blesses them with the resources to be able to pour into you.
And that's powerful what you said too. You'll come across people who you want to mentor you, but they just might not be in a position to do so. And then there are those who just don't know how to do it.
Sure.
And I've run into a lot of those type of people, because the type of mentorship that I've come to experience by many people are is a type of mentorship that I guess would be somewhat exclusive. They had never mentored someone like they had mentored me before, because in some cases I feel as though sometimes you have to teach a mentor how to be a good mentor to you.
Absolutely.
And the reasoning, being because perhaps they didn't have a mentor to sow into you the way that, and so you have to be able to protect that relationship, and to protect the tenacity behind that and what that looks like. That's powerful. So let me ask you this: in a position of authority and a position of influence,
Okay.
that you're at over at Praise 102.5, over at Radio One, how do you keep a level head? And what I mean by that is a lot of things. Well, I guess two things. One, humility, right? Making sure that it doesn't get to your head and get you feeling yourself. And then secondly, you have to deal with some type of somewhat um, resistance per se, of people who may look at you and say, "Look at this young girl. What does she know? What is she doing?" How do you have how do you keep a leveled head when it comes to you being in your position of authority and influence?
Absolutely. Great question, first and foremost. For me, I think it's been in me since a child. Like I said, I played sports from a very, very young age. And if you're familiar with the game of basketball, typically the smallest person on the court is the point guard. And so I played that position coming up. And what the point guard typically is the coach on the court. And so with that, when things are going well, it's somebody else's praise. Somebody else gets the praise. And when things are going wrong, it's typically been my responsibility. So I've always had that kind of built in me. It's kind of kept me very level-headed. It doesn't allow me to get too high, because I know, hey, there's another play after this. And there's the same thing with life. Okay, Praise in the Park was successful. We knocked it out of the park. Great. I'm looking forward to the recap meeting. How can we be better? And it's a very tough thing to balance, because you have to be able to step back and say, hey, we did a great job, and feel good about yourself. But for me, it's knowing the bigger picture. I know that there's always more work to be done, and I take some time to celebrate the wins. but I'm always trying to press forward because I know that there's so many other things that I'm looking to accomplish, and so many other lives that I'm hoping to touch, and so many different ways that I'm looking to be of service. So when I keep that in mind, and I know that there's always someone out there who can use, my testimony or my resources, I know that at any moment, all of this could go away. It can simply be taken away from me. You never know what God has in store for you. So when I keep that in mind, it doesn't allow me to get too high, but I'm able to look back and say, hey, I'm proud of what I've done.
Wow. Bree, I'm sure you have heard it before. You are wise beyond your years.
I appreciate it, Jerry. As are you. If that's true for anyone, it's definitely you.
Wow. Well, look, I received that. What I want to do right now, actually, is before we get to our last question, is there's anyone on the webinar who has a question for you. I want to invite them to ask that question, whether that's you asking it via the Zoom platform of you speaking now or forever holding your peace, or in the chat, share with us a question that you would like to ask Bree.
Please, guys, I'm here as a resource. If there's any information I can provide you, I would love to. And if you don't have it on here, you're more than welcome to reach out via social media. I'm always available there at Bre, _Singleton. I know sometimes I think of questions later on down the line, but Bre _Singleton on all platforms as well.
I have a question before we get to our last question. Maybe if someone is thinking and would like to share their question. Talk to us about your life balancing faith, family, fun. You're 24 years old. You got to have still a decent bit of fun, right? There's still family, but then there's still career and work and faith. What does that balance look like for you?
It's definitely very tricky. It's something I'm still working on for sure. Family has always been my root, my support system. So I've done a great job of making sure that that never diminishes in any aspect. So that's to start, and I think that's a great foundation for any person to have. So I always keep that close. But as far as faith and fun, it's challenging. I don't know what everyone's faith is on this call, but for me, it's being 24 and being in the city of Atlanta where a lot of young people are flourishing. It comes down to your choices. It comes down to your morals, who you are as a person, what you're willing to sacrifice. And like I said earlier in the call, I narrowed in on my focus very early on in my life. And because of that fact, it hasn't allowed me to succumb to different pressures, to different distractions, so on and so forth. But as far as balancing a career and fun and dating, it's tricky, but I've learned to put myself first. As much as I want to serve others and be of service and reach out and help others, I've got to put my mental health first. I've got to put my physical health first. I've got to put my dreams, my goals, and desires top of mind, or else they won't get done. And so with that, one thing I'm working on right now is saying no. Sometimes, in the position that I'm in, I get different invitations to all sorts of things, different networking events, just different opportunities. And some days I just have to sit back and say, hey, this isn't going to get done to the best of my ability, so I'm going to refuse it at this time. Or I need a couple extra hours of sleep, or I really wanted to finish this book tonight, so I'm going to pass on the album release party, or I'm going to pass on the concert, the backstage passes, X, Y, and Z. So to answer your question, I put my mental health first. And as long as that's intact, if I feel like it's something that's going to push me forward or allow me to have a healthy, good time, it's a go from there. But definitely just a balance of mental health and sacrifice, I think, is how I balance everything out.
Ooh, I hear that. You matter, right? Sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that. I matter. I used to be that type of person that, as God is doing some great things in your life, and like you said, you get invited to this and you get invited to that, and you're in 20 different places in a week, and I used to go to all of them.
Yes.
And then just realize, that you're probably burning yourself out. And you have to ask yourself, are you supposed to be here? Just because it's good doesn't mean it's God. And we definitely have to put ourselves first, because we definitely do matter. And our mental health matters. Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's powerful. Absolutely. If anybody has any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. If not, I know you've got to go and get ready for your show, because your show starts at 11, right?
Yes, sir. 11 p.m.
Awesome.
If you're in Atlanta, and if you're not, and you would still like to check us out, we are available on mypraiseatl.com. Mypraiseatl.com. There's a free live stream for you to check us out.
Awesome. Bree, I appreciate you coming on, and before you leave, because most of the people that are going to be watching this, as you know, are going to be watching this on YouTube, because that's where most of our distribution is, on YouTube, and as we dish this out versus the people that are watching live. Speak an encouraging word to the next generation of leaders that are watching this, that you want to resonate in their hearts, in their spirits. And as you share that encouraging word of encouragement and enrichment, share at what point it is that you discovered your purpose, and ultimately, what is your purpose?
Okay. Well, if you don't mind, I'm going to actually answer those in reverse. And so I truly believe that I found my passion and my purpose just a few weeks ago. Probably 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to speak to a group of students at Stevenson High School here on the east side of Atlanta. And my message to them was pretty much the same message that I have for you all tonight. I know that coming up, we always hear, be the best that you can be. Do, whatever you put your mind to, you can accomplish it. And I want you guys to know that it doesn't have to necessarily be one thing. I think you have an opportunity to do everything, be all that you can be all that God has called you to do. And the way that you do that is to simply streamline whatever it is that you're doing. So combine your hustles. I've had the opportunity to combine that. So in my passion for marketing and promotions and events, I then found myself, through communicating with several different people, a gift of speech. Which now allows me to speak to thousands upon thousands every night on Praise 102.5. So I would just encourage you out there to not feel bogged down or bombarded, especially if you have several gifts within you. And I know that there are several people on this call who feel like they have a multitude of things that they want to accomplish while they're on this earth. And so I would challenge you out there to simply get started. Put ideas onto paper, plan them out, pray over them, seek out resources, and then go after everything you want. Don't fall victim to the fact that you can only do one thing in this lifetime. You can do everything in this lifetime. And I truly believe that. So, I pray that all of you have the resources, or can find the resources, or have the confidence to speak up and ask for them. But I would just say, go after everything that you want in this life. Powerful. Bree, thank you so much for coming on. I thoroughly appreciate it. The members of our organization thoroughly appreciate it. I know you're going to have a wonderful, awesome show tonight. And tell Edward I said hello. I absolutely will, Jared. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for putting on these webinars and the different services you provide to young people. I'm sure that everyone who is involved is truly appreciative of you and the work that you're doing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Absolutely. You guys have a great one. So you all, that was Bree Singleton out here doing amazing things with Praise 102.5, Radio 1, and an entrepreneur, a hustler in her own respective right. And we're just so grateful for her joining. I'm going to take a quick break real quick to share with our YPP members just a reminder that on November the 25th and the 26th of, the 22nd and the 23rd, we will be in Washington, D.C. for our High on Purpose Institute. So all of our state officers, definitely you want to make sure that you're in D.C. for our High on Purpose Institute so you can get trained
we'll be going ahead and getting our program of work established and ready for each state, so that way you can go into the year in 2020 with a strong foundation and power and authority as we go forth and build up this next generation of leaders. Also, we are giving away at the end of this webinar tickets to the NFL Titans versus Panthers game this Sunday at 1 p.m. The Titans versus Panthers game this Sunday at 1 p.m. And so in order for you to be eligible to be a part of our ticket giveaway, we're giving away 2 tickets to this game. You've got to email membership@upowerpurpose.org, membership@upowerpurpose.org, and make sure you email your member number. And to share, just as we usually do at our other webinars, the 3 answers of at what point did each of our speakers discover and drive their purpose. So you have to submit your submission to membership@upowerpurpose.org by 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time tomorrow, and make sure you're there on the 22nd and the 23rd for our High on Purpose Institute in Washington, D.C. And we also still have a few slots open and ready for our Israel trip in May 2020. For any of you all who are interested in going to our Israel trip, you can email mdavis@upowerpurpose.org. Reach out to Marie, and she'll be able to share more information with you guys. Alrighty. So we're getting ready for our next speaker, our next special guest. I have known this guy for a very, very long time, probably at least for the past 4 or 5 years. Well, actually longer than that, but we got a chance to really connect in person over the course of maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And he's out here doing some amazing things. And I want him to tell us more about himself and the things that he's doing and how he's blessing lives, because he is in an area of servant leadership, as well as in the area of entrepreneurship, law, politics. Everyone, let's welcome to the Thursday Night Momentum webinar, attorney Brian Poe.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be part of the Thursday night webinar with Pastor Jared Sawyer, my friend, also someone that I look up to, because at a very young age, he has captivated a lot of people, and he has a great following. I was impressed with what I saw in terms of his social media numbers. I was like, how do you get to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 followers? It's some astronomical number like that. And it says to me that his voice is resonating. He's also working. You don't get a following like that without working, without pushing what you're doing. So I'm very impressed with you, and it's a pleasure to be part of this. My journey began a long time ago, and it wasn't always really one that involved a purpose. And that's why I think my story is going to be valuable, because I'm someone who found that purpose, I guess, halfway through my life, or certainly many years into my career. I just knew that I wanted to get a higher education. I didn't go to law school because I wanted to be the next Johnny Cochran or the next Barack Obama or John F. Kennedy. I just, thought I needed to get an advanced degree. I don't necessarily recommend you get a degree for that reason, but at least somewhere along the way, I began to think more from a purpose standpoint. Why? Because I really wasn't happy in what I was doing in corporate America. On paper, it seemed pretty good. And I think from someone looking on outside of everything that was going on, they would think that I was a successful person. But I just didn't feel on a daily basis, why am I getting up? Why am I needed in the job that I am performing? And where am I going? I mean, I didn't look to my boss and feel like, oh, wow, that's what I want to do next. By the way, at this point in my life, I had 3 degrees. I had a undergraduate degree in multinational business administration from Florida State, master's of business administration from University of Georgia, and then a law degree from University of Virginia. It's one of the top 10 law schools in the United States. And I had worked with a large law firm in Washington, D.C., large law firm in Atlanta, and I was at a corporation. So what I started doing was writing. Writing became my escape. It became my journey. I would really spend a lot of time in the evenings and early mornings writing screenplays. I eventually got one of those screenplays made into a movie called Big Ain't Bad. It was the Audience Choice Award of the 2003 Hollywood Black Film Festival. And we got distribution through First Look. And for a while there, this was right before Tyler Perry and Will Packer, those came onto the scene. My film and the group that was with me, people thought we were going to ascend in that direction. But the whole journey was something that was taxing on me. And I realized at a certain point that I needed to get back into the practice of law, but I came back with a different mindset because making the film was so much of a challenge, and it required me to go out into the community and look people in the face and say, listen, I need you to invest in my film. I need your help. I need you to provide your home so we could shoot in your home. It was an independent production all around Atlanta. It turned me into more of a politician in a way, because I had to just ask in order to get this done. But the brilliant thing for me was I realized that because I enjoyed what I was doing for the first time, I liked writing, I liked organizing, I liked leading. It wasn't hard for me to ask because I believed in what I was asking for and I wanted it so badly. And that was new to me. So as a lawyer working on a lot of these different projects for other people, I didn't have that type of passion. I didn't stay up at night thinking about my work. The film was the exact reverse. And so when I came out of that moment, out of the entertainment industry and back into the legal field, I decided to create a law firm that was based on my vision, that was based on my passion. And my passion is the community. My passion is working with people. So, you see me on Facebook and you probably see that I have quite a few pages there and everything. And I'm always engaging in social media. Why? Because my business actually requires me to continue to meet people, know people, let them know what I'm about, let them know I'm a good guy, let them know I will help you. I need help as well. Part of the reason I'm on this show, Jared, is because you have referred me business. And so I look at it from a standpoint of, did this brother, he's as busy as he is, he gets an opportunity to pass a legal matter along. Well, he doesn't practice law, so he could just say, hey, that's not my business. Let me keep moving. But you wanted to help this person, and then you chose me to be the beneficiary of that. That means a lot to me. And that's what the message that I want to pass along more to into anything else is reciprocity is very important in relationships. And if someone helps you, you remember that. All right.
That's powerful. Yeah, that's powerful. Two things you mentioned, well, first, that reciprocity. I mean, I think a lot of young people have to really, really understand what it means to be, fair and, what it means to be fair and faithful to the people who are fair and faithful to you. And that's very, very powerful and I think a very, very important thing for young leaders to understand. A lot of young people don't end up understanding that until they're far in their 40s and in their 50s and so forth. And so they just kind of go around using everybody and just getting over on everybody, and they get what they want and then they just kind of dish off, But the likelihood is that most of the time the people who were faithful to you in the beginning will be faithful to you in the very end if you're faithful to them and very fair to them as well. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that. You mentioned, you know, your desire, your yearning to be in the community. You just recently this year won the award for social impact and community engagement at the Rice Awards. Among all of the other nominees, you ended up winning that award. What does that mean to you? Because you know that was the path, yeah, that's the path that you've been on. You've been awarded for it now. What does that mean to you?
It meant the world to me. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. And I told the founder of the organization offline, his name is C. Shannon Carter. And if he's watching, shout out to C. Shannon Carter and the Rice Awards. I told him that I couldn't imagine an award meaning more because the emphasis it's called Rising in Community Excellence. And so the idea is actually to spot people who are ascending up. And even in receiving the award, my mission is just to continue every year to build on what I'm doing, build on the relationships, and be able to have more of an impact in the next year and the year that comes after that. And so to be able to be recognized for being on some nonprofit boards, and always I like to contribute money whenever I see somebody that has a passion or a need. I will consider figuring out a way to get involved and get behind them. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's resources, other resources, sometimes it's volunteering. We have staff that were able to push it to different activities. And it's just an honor to be able to have that kind of an impact and to have a brand that focuses on these things. So it's exciting, and I was just truly honored to receive the award.
Wonderful. Well, I was very happy for you when I saw it, and I was on Facebook. I said, well, praise God, you definitely are very, very deserving of that. Your influences. Who've been the greatest influences in your life? Who is the person that you think has been the greatest influence to you?
My father, Dr. Booker Poe, has been the greatest influence in my life. He is someone who he had a purpose from the time he was 6 or 7 years old. He's a physician. He's a pediatrician. And that's something that he wanted to do all of his life. And he worked very, very hard to get into medical school, to get through medical school, and then to come out and practice for 50 years as a pediatrician. When he came out, there were not really a whole lot of doctors that had specialties. So, you had most doctors were like general practitioners, and he came out with a specialty, hung his shingle on Martin Luther King Drive in 1969, and did that for 50 years, did not retire until November of 2018. So this month here is the 1-year anniversary of his retirement. And it's just to see somebody keep going. I mean, and even after my mother passed, Gloria Poe, who is a hero of mine as well, when she passed in 2015, you would think he would just kind of have packed it up. But he had an obligation to so many people, and he was performing at such a high level that they didn't want him to quit. In fact, he sold his practice and then worked for the people who purchased his practice because his name meant so much. So that's what I want to be. I mean, I'd love to do this for another 30 or 40 years and be in a position where people feel that way about me. But that's my dad. That's my greatest influence. Barack Obama, former president of the United States, is an influence to so many of us. And in my speech at the Rice Awards, I mentioned a quote that comes from him that basically says, at the end of the day, that we can't wait for other people to make change happen anymore. With the national leadership that we now have, we can't sit around and expect the government to make these things happen. We have to do what we're doing right now, spending time at 10 o'clock at night spreading positive messages when we could be asleep or watching television. No, we're sitting here. I'm learning about, Bre Singleton and Mr. Elisha Drain and Tisha Fertrell, Cordaro Shaw. I'm looking at some of the names of the people that are involved with this webinar. and of course, talking to Pastor Sawyer. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And you know, I have a question for you. You know, because what I love about, you know, doing these webinars, one, we do it at night, you know, 10 p.m. And like I said, we started back up doing these because we always take a break over the summer. And then this time we're doing it a little bit different. And we're going to try this whole YouTube, you know, upload. Because, you know, recently we been doing a lot of different international exposure. We're very multicultural organization. There are a lot of people who want to do what you do, you know, and that's the amazing thing is, you know, we get a chance to bring on people who people can see themselves in those persons. There are some people that are going to be watching this, so there just may be one person who's watching this who says, I want to do what Attorney Brian Poe does. They may have a different journey, but it may be somewhat similar, or they want to have the same, you know, they have the same goals that you have. What advice do you have for that young man, that young woman who wants to do exactly what you do?
Relationships. That's my advice. My advice is to build relationships out here in the community. And then that sounds like a basic, that's cliche in a sense. So I try to go a little deeper and say what matters to me in relationships is I'm looking to hang with people that have that same drive, because it's so much work that's out here to be done, whether it's someone else's project or your own. You need to be able to team up and collaborate with people. And sometimes you need to be able to ride with them. You know, just like tonight, I didn't set all this up. You set it up, Jared. You know, it's a lot of time that you put into bringing us together and getting this message out, right? Sometimes I'm the one who's behind the scenes, the executive producer. So you have to team up with people, help them, and of course, sometimes you're going to ask for help and receive their help in return, but you have to do it with people, again, that are driven, that have vision, and that can get things done. And so, you know, I've gotten here, not just based on my own talent, but based on the talent of the people that are around me. And I say the same thing with respect to people that you include on your team. Like if you're hiring someone to work for you or contracting someone to be involved in something you're doing, I mean, you need people that are going to work very hard and that see the vision that you have and that are willing to make sacrifices in order to help you accomplish it, because they see something that they can accomplish out of being a part of your vision.
What's new that's going on with you? What new projects are you working on? Any new community engagements that you've got going on that you want to share with the audience? What's new that's going on in Attorney Brian Poe's world?
Okay. Well, we're coming up on a new decade, actually, the 2020s. And so I'm looking at...
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, isn't it amazing? The 20s, man. I don't know why. I think it's, again, that's some weird stuff that's going on in Washington, D.C. now. We're losing that optimism. You know, we got to get it back, right? The 2020s are coming, and that's a moment for all of us to jump in and say, hey, okay, now I'm ready. Now it's my time. Let's get it, right? And so I have something called the Atlanta Business and Entertainment Exchange. That's probably one thing that you have followed me on, and we've got about 35,000 followers there. And we're going to kind of roll out in the new decade with events. I'm not prepared to announce the date and time and place, but my co-founder is John Williams, and he is the owner of World Star Hit Radio.
Yeah, World Star. Yeah.
Yeah. And he called me literally less than a week ago, and he was like, you know, I cannot wait for our event. And so he's kind of, this is a perfect example of what I mean. He's the one that's kind of putting together the print for it, and I'm going to come behind him and obviously my people and some resources we push in. We also have a company called American Technologies that provides all of our video. I don't know if you follow American Technologies or not, but they're huge. They do Atlanta Business League. They do the Atlanta Tribune Magazine, 100 Black Men. All big events are filmed by Daniel Fowler and his team at American Technologies, and they're my third leg of the Atlanta business entertainment chain. So we're going to roll back out, and then my law firms will be a big part of that marketing as well. We've got Georgia Injury Attorneys is on the back cover of this is South Fulton Lifestyles magazine. This is the current November edition, and this same autograph you should be seeing a lot in stores now. We have my business card holder in a lot of stores in the South Fulton County area. We plan to place about 200 of these in businesses across South Fulton County. And a lot of folks are saying, "Are you the guy on the business card holder?" I'm like, "Okay, this is working."
It's working. It's working.
So, yeah,
that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, somebody said, they said, you know that your marketing is working when you go places and people know you and you don't know them. So
yes,
that's good. That's good. It means it's working. It means it's
that is something that I've experienced a lot in the last 3 or 4 years, and it was a hard journey to get there, but it's a pretty cool thing. It's a pretty cool thing. But I'm always humble, and I just try to, even though if someone may say, "Oh, they follow," I know you get this too. When you have a social media follower, people follow you and they're following your life. If you're doing social media a certain way, they really know you, right?
Yes, so, people can feel as though they really, and sometimes you can be doing so much you don't even know. I was somewhere the other day and I had my earphones in and I was talking to somebody, and somebody this lady came up and grabbed me and she was like, "I saw you on television the other day." And all I could sit there and think was, I was on television the other day. And sometimes you could just be doing so many, because I didn't know I was. I didn't know.
Right.
Because sometimes you could just be doing so much, and all of that would definitely pay off in the end, and it can, life can happen for you just like that in so many great ways. So I commend you, Attorney Poe, and I thank you for your support of me and everything that I'm doing, your support of You Power Purpose, and definitely look forward to hearing more and more great things.
Oh, and have you been on Mix 106 already, DC? I'm trying to remember. Have you done that yet?
I have not, but I was on his other station.
Okay. That was Alma Radio. Okay, let's get. We want to schedule you on Mix 106 Radio, and of course we'll get you on World Star Hit Radio as well. Those are two of my best friends in the world. DC, of course, is incredible. You've interacted with him, so let's make sure that we make that happen.
That sounds like a plan to me. Before you leave, and actually, hopefully, you can stay on for our next speaker. But before the segment is over, I'd like for you to share with our audience, what is your purpose? I know you mentioned it, previously before, but explicitly for those to be able to record it and to share, what is your purpose, and at what point did you discover your purpose?
Yeah, my purpose is very simple. I love people. I love helping people. I love helping people through my practice. I also like helping people through collaborations, and that means even with my peers, my competitors, the ways that we're able to get together sometimes and change what's going on in our industry, come up with better industry practices, come up with ways that we as personal injury attorneys, for instance, can make sure that we're treating all of the different people that we pay when a case closes. We have to handle that with respect and integrity, and it's just a pleasure to be in the community, working with so many different people. I just enjoy that. So I just like engaging in what I do. I like meeting people. I like building relationships, and I'm having a ball with it. And it does feel so much. I guess feels so much more purposeful, because every minute of it I actually enjoy now. because I am in my own community and I'm dealing with people who are having an impact in the community that I live in and that I was raised in.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Thank you so much, Attorney Poe. YPP members, you've heard it from him. Definitely look forward to connecting with you further. As you've constantly supported YPP from its inception, we thank you so much, and definitely look forward to supporting you and the different things that you've got going on in the community. Make sure that you follow him on Facebook, and you can find him also on his website as well. And we also will be sharing that information in the caption on YouTube when we upload this shortly. Thank you so much, Attorney Poe. I appreciate it.
Thank you too, Pastor Sawyer.
Up next, we have someone who is probably one of my favorite people in the entire world. One of my favorite people in the entire world. Before we get to her, definitely want to remind everyone to make sure that you email membership@upowerpurpose.org once this is over. This will be uploaded right after the webinar is over. And by 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, email the three speakers and at what point they discovered their purpose and what their purpose is for you to win 2 tickets to the NFL Titans versus Panthers game this Sunday, November the 3rd. And it's only for YPP members. If you're a YPP member, make sure that you submit that along with your member number. And definitely make sure that you've also reserved your spot for the November 22nd and 23rd High on Purpose Institute up in Washington, D.C. So we're getting ready to welcome our last speaker for the evening, one of my favorite people in the entire world. She is Elder Elisha Drain. Elder Elisha Drain. She is, I'm going to read you this bio and then I'm going to talk about her. Elisha Drain is an author, a business leader, inspirational speaker, ordained minister who elevates the way that people think, act, live, and lead. As the Vice President of Operations and the driving force behind First Kingdom Management, Inc. in Atlanta, Elisha spearheads brand operations and logistical support for Fortune 500 companies, historic nonprofit organizations, and their stakeholders. Her expertise in contract negotiation, endorsement deals, event production, intellectual property, trademark, and global speaker management propelled her to make acquaintances with world leaders as President Barack Obama and media icon Oprah Winfrey, Nelson Mandela, President George W. Bush, just to name a few. Elisha is a native of Memphis, Tennessee, and is a graduate of Memphis State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice. You all, I want to welcome to this webinar, Elder Elisha Drain.
Pastor Jared Sawyer. How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you doing tonight?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just honored to be here.
I am so excited for you to be on this webinar. You know, we do these webinars from January to April, and then from October until December. And when October came around, I said that you have to be one of my first guests because you're one of my favorite people in the world and you know it. And it's for 1.5 million reasons. One reason is because you are clearly anointed. And you know, YPP, we have a very wide base of members, people who are, you know, Christians and those who are Muslims and so on and so forth. But you know, I'm not ashamed to say it. You are anointed. You are so anointed, and there's a grace that you bring into any room that you walk into. And you're probably one of the only people that if there's any type of stress that I'm dealing with, any type of calamity that's going on in my life, whether personally or professionally, and I can just speak to you, and there is a calmness that just comes over me within moments. And I know I cannot be the only person. What'd you say?
I said, can I take you with me everywhere I go?
I can't be the only person who has said that to you. I'm sure other people have been able to attest to just the grace that you bring into a space. Have you always been this gracious?
Have I always been this gracious? You know what? I think life has taught me to be this gracious. I'm sure even for some of the people who will be watching or who will listen later, life will teach you a lot of things. And you may not always start out, even though I grew up in the church, grew up in a Christian home, but you have friends. And sometimes you will, dab into a little, what I like to call some things that you shouldn't dab into. But God in his mercy and his grace will keep you. And so life has taught me a lot of things. And one is to be humble. Humility is just something that I've learned over time that it pays off. It really does.
So you talk about all that life teaches you, and you're definitely someone who is qualified to talk about life. And one thing about it is, a lot of people out here talking about what it is they've done and so on and so forth. But I mean, you've done it. You've traveled all over the world. You've been in the presence of some amazing people, and you've seen a lot of things, and you know what is and what is not, and what works and what does not work. As you've traveled all over the world and all these different continents and countries, what travel pilgrimage did you take that changed your life or that changed your career the most, would you say?
Wow. I think my trip to South Korea, I had an opportunity to go to South Korea. I work for Dr. Bernice King, who is the youngest daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King. And so even in having the opportunity to work for her, every day I'm living history and I'm also creating history. We had an opportunity to go to South Korea. And on my bucket list, I wanted to go to a place called Prayer Mountain in South Korea. I had heard so much about Prayer Mountain. Prayer is a lifeline for me. I believe in prayer 110%. And so when we went to South Korea, I asked them to take me to Prayer Mountain. Now, this was my first time going to South Korea, and certainly my first time going to Prayer Mountain. I had an encounter as we were driving to Prayer Mountain. As we were getting a little bit closer, and I didn't realize that we were close, but all of a sudden, Jared, tears just started rolling down my eyes. And I was in the car with Dr. Bernice King, and she looked at me, she was like, "Why are you crying?" And I told her I didn't know, because I did not have the words to explain why all of a sudden I started crying. And the closer we got to Prayer Mountain, the more the tears start to stream down my face. And so when we pulled through the gates, I was really crying, and she said, "Okay, you got to get yourself together," because there were media and photographers out there, and so I had to, what I said, be on. I had to get out and handle business. But when we got inside the facility, I was still a little shaken because I was trying to figure out, why was I so emotional? What happened to me to make me, overcome like this? And when we got inside the church, the only way I can explain it, Jared, is there was a cloud inside the church. I call it a glory cloud. But you could feel the presence of the Holy Spirit in there. And later, when I left, I just kept saying, what happened to me? And then what I finally came to the conclusion, something in my spirit said, "You're home." And what did that mean? That meant that I had connected with people who believe the impossible like I believe, who believe that prayer, if prayer could really change anything. And so I was connected with like spirits, and that's why I was so overcome, because I had never been in an environment like that where people believed in miracles. where they believed that the impossible could become possible. So you asked what changed my life. It was South Korea, my trip to Prayer Mountain. And when I came back, I said that what I experienced there changed my life forever.
Wow. You know, I didn't until two things, read your book, and when we went to Memphis last year, I think it's, yeah, last year in 2018, yes. That was when I got a chance to hear your journey, hear your story. And you're from Memphis.
I am.
20 years ago, did you see yourself where you are today? Did you see yourself in a position where you would be in South Korea and given this opportunity to go up Prayer Mountain?
Absolutely not. You know, I grew up in South Memphis. And actually, you know, my goal, Brian, was to be an attorney. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to practice law. And where I am today, absolutely not. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined. To know that I had the opportunity to meet Coretta Scott King, to be a part of a lot of things during her lifetime. Never in my life did I think that I would be connected to the King family. Certainly, you know, with Dr. King being assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, one would not think that the daughter, Bernice King, would even allow me to be in the position that I'm in representing her, and being the face for her. And not only that, you know, she's my best friend. So no, not in a million years would, if someone had told me this, I would have told them they're lying. They got the wrong person. So, but God. But God, that is the only way that I can explain. And I'll tell you a quick funny story, how I actually met Dr. King. It was during the time I was going to Beulah Heights, and I was taking an extension class at Greater Rising Star, which is a church here in Atlanta called the Love Center, where she was the assistant to the pastor. And it was my last night of class there. And I wanted to meet her because at the time, you didn't find a lot of young women in ministry. And so I wanted to meet her. Well, I paid a price to meet Bernice King. My car caught on fire that night.
Yes, that's in the book. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's in the book. I talk about it in the book. And, you know, so sometimes there's a price that we have to pay for greatness. It doesn't just come, you know, you have to be willing to pay the price. And so my car caught on fire. And that night she just happened to be at the church. And long story short, she ended up giving me a ride with another one of the ministers from the church. And at the time, there were cassette tapes. Do you remember that, Jared? Cassette tapes.
And when I remember seeing them. I don't remember ever using them. Kind of like VHS, you know.
Yeah, kind of like that. Right. And I was she took me home, and I was getting out of her car, and she had this tape, and I think it was by one of the Winans. No, Marvin Sapp. And I said, "Can I borrow your tape?" And she looked at me and she said, "Borrow? You don't even know me. How do I know I'm gonna get this back?" You know, but it was that connected us. And here I am 20 years later, working for her, representing her, best friends, and only God could do that. Because in all actuality, why would she trust someone from Memphis, Tennessee, the place where her father was assassinated?
Wow. And you mentioned something that is not even in my notes as a question to ask, but you mentioned, you know, at that time, you yearning to connect with other young, powerful Black women preachers. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there has been for years a long haul that women in ministry have gone through in being able to get any sort of respect and prominence, because you got these old heads, you know, women shouldn't preach and this, that, and the other. And then what peruses into the rest of the world, women still fighting for equity and equality. We're in areas where equality has been met, still seeking a rise in equity. Gratefully, I've been able to connect with people like you and Dr. King, and it's put me in a space where, when it comes to whether it's women in ministry, women in leadership, women in business, I've just been surrounded by nothing but powerful Black women all of my life, right? From my mother to my aunts, from my grandparents, to you and the whole 9 yards. At what point? Because I'm pretty sure you've had to go through the hurdles of getting that established respect and integrity as a Black woman in business, as a Black woman in ministry. What did that look like? That journey towards and what type of advice would you give towards a young Black woman who is in ministry? Because we have many young Black women preachers within YPP. What advice do you have towards them? Those who are trying to get into business. What advice do you have towards them?
What I would say to young women period, that are trying to get into business, who are in ministry and still face preachers, men saying women don't belong in the pulpit and all that. I mean, just maybe about a year or so ago, I went somewhere to speak, and the pastor said to me, you could stand down there, at the little podium. And I was okay with that, because here's the thing. I know who I am,
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't need to stand in a pulpit to validate me.
Mm-hmm.
I know who I am. I know that God has called me into ministry. So whether I'm in a pulpit, whether I'm on the street, I'm still going to be me. And so that's the advice that I would give to women all around the world. Be yourself and be secure in being who God has called you to be. Because if we wait for someone to validate us, just like they validate you, they'll pull you down. And so you'll find yourself on this up and down, roller coaster. But if you know who you are, and you are assured that God has called you, whether it's to ministry or whether it's to be a business leader, whatever it is that He has called you to be, you be it. And don't let anyone else define you. And that's the thing, Jared, today. Society tries to define us. You got to look a certain way. You got to have long hair or, all of that. But when you know who you are and you are secure in who you are, then nobody can stop you. At that point, you become unstoppable.
Mm. So let me ask you this. So what is the greatest, because, you mentioned, being around people like, Mrs. Coretta Scott King. You've got a chance to connect with practically everyone. Just a few weeks ago, we were at the Tyler Perry grand opening of Tyler Perry Studios.
Sure.
What is the greatest lesson that you've learned in the presence of greats?
Wow. I'll share this with you, talking about being at the opening of Tyler Perry's new studio here in Atlanta. When I was standing in the room, before I went to the event, I was speaking to a friend of mine, and I said, wow, I'm wondering, why am I going? Dr. King could have asked anybody to go with her, but I was the one going. And so my friend said to me, when you go, look for God. Keep asking God, why am I here? Why am I here? And so when we were in the reception area, and I had walked away and I was walking back to the table, and I said, okay, God, I'm looking for you. Why do you have me here? And at that moment, Tyler Perry came up on the stage and he began to tell his story. And many of your viewers, and as well as you, may know his story about how he was homeless and lived out of his car. And although I've never been homeless, but when I looked at him, you know, he didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. You know, he went through some things. And so when I looked at Tyler, I could relate, because I didn't grow up with a silver spoon and I've never been homeless, you know. But I said to him, God, if you did that for him, then I know that you can do it for me. And so I left that night and I began weeping, and I said, tonight I'm going to dream bigger.
Wow.
Outside the box, where I know that when it happens, it's God who did it. So yeah, that's dream bigger.
And I think that was his aim from the what was the theme? It was something as to that nature, you know, dreaming bigger or something as to that. You know, so you know, here it is. You've been in a lot of places. You've done a lot of things. You serve as the Vice President of Operations at First Kingdom Management. What does that entail? What does a day in the life of Elder Elisha Drain look like as VP of Operations at First Kingdom Management?
As I said, you know, for First Kingdom Management, I represent Bernice King. What does that mean? Whether it's speaking engagements, doing contracts, negotiating business deals, all of that. And so for me, what that looks like, I don't go to work, Jared. I found something where I go to life. Even if I had to do it and not be paid, I will still do it because I enjoy what I do. I feel that I am creating history and I'm living, you know, a legacy. I'm serving a legacy while preparing to leave a legacy.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So that said, who's your biggest inspiration?
Wow. My biggest inspiration, Brian mentioned that his biggest inspiration, I think, was his father. My biggest inspiration was my mom. My mom didn't get a college degree. You know, she graduated, went back and graduated from high school. I am the youngest of 6. And I watched my mom give her everything, not just to me and my siblings, but even to my friends. I lost my mom 2 years ago. And before she passed, people who I went to high school with, who I went to college with, even though I now live in Atlanta, they would come and see my mom because she embraced them like they were her own. You know, my mother loved everybody. Despite of how someone may have treated her, she still loved them unconditionally. And that she was my shero. She's my biggest inspiration. You know, she taught me so much just by living an example. She wasn't the type of mother who said, now do what I say do. You know, don't do what I do, but do what I tell you to do. No, my mom did, and she modeled what she did in front of me. So she was my shero. She's my biggest inspiration. As a matter of fact, my book, Life is dedicated to my mom.
So let's talk about that book, Life Is. So when you mentioned that you were going to be coming out with a book, I got so excited because I said, oh my goodness, Elder Drane is coming out with a book. I can't wait to read it. I went ahead and I got my copy. And then you, Power Purpose, went ahead and got, I think, about 10 copies from you. And we went ahead and we blessed several people within our organization with a copy of your book, and they've been loving it. One is actually on right now, and we're going to be welcoming him to actually ask you a question. Mr. Cordero Shaw. Mr. Cordero Shaw is a student at Yale University, and he'll get a chance to introduce himself a little bit more exquisitely. He's one of the most remarkable people that I've ever met. You know, we talk about a Renaissance man, a prolific thinker. That's him all the way. So Cordero, are you here with us?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Can you see me?
We can see you.
Wonderful. So,
So, Cordera, introduce yourself and ask Elder Drane the question that you have pertaining to her book.
so my name is Cordero Shaw. I'm a graduate of Morehouse College. I finished in 2019. I was an Oprah Scholar at Morehouse. I had the opportunity to travel to South Africa. So your part in the book about traveling to Johannesburg, that resonated with me. Yeah, but I'm currently at Yale. I'm pursuing a master's degree in religion and the social sciences in hopes of pursuing a PhD after I finish here. But I want to talk to you about being thankful and being grateful. These are two tenets that you outline in your book, and these are tenets that I feel are lacking within the youth of today. And I want you to essentially elaborate on why you feel it's important for youth to embody these characteristics.
Wow. Well, you said something very key that I have found out with the youth of today. They think that they are entitled. There's a sense of entitlement. Really not understanding that for all of us are standing on someone's shoulders. Someone has paid the price in some kind of way, for you to go to Morehouse, for you to now be at Yale, there's a price that was paid. I'm reminded of a quote by Coretta Scott King, and her daughter Bernice King says it all the time. And the quote simply says this: struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation, which means every generation has to be a part of that freedom struggle. There's something that we have to do in order to prepare the way for the generation that's coming behind us. And so what I have learned in life is to be thankful for the things that you have. There are people, when you look today, I'll tell you an experience that I had, and that's where that being thankful and grateful came from. I had an opportunity right after I graduated from college to go to Washington, D.C. And I had never in my life come face to face with homelessness. And we were on Pennsylvania Avenue. Again, I talk about it in the book. And it was one night and we were walking down Pennsylvania Avenue. And when we got in front of the White House, there was this lady who was homeless, and she was sleeping on the concrete. Now, I saw this years ago, but the impact that it had on my life changed me forever, because I realized, but for the grace of God, there go I. I could have been that lady that was homeless, that used the concrete as her bed and that wrought iron gate. And behind that gate was one of the most powerful men in America. But yet on the other side of that gate was a woman who was homeless and didn't have a place to lay her head. And from there on, I learned to be thankful and grateful for the things that I have and the things that God has entrusted me with.
Wonderful.
I think he's frozen.
Cordero, are you still with us?
I am still here. That was a great explanation.
Okay.
A great story.
That's
Thank you.
Powerful, Elder Drane. So much is given, much is required. You mentioned what God entrusts you with, that if we find ourselves in a privileged situation, if we find ourselves in a blessed situation, God must have trusted us with this situation to not just do our best, but to do the best. And sometimes doing the best can simply be to bask in the presence of humility at all times, and recognizing that with God we're everything, but without Him we are absolutely nothing. So let me ask you this last question as we get ready to head off of here. This is our first time using the Zoom platform, and so someone told me that if we set the timing for 1 hour and 30 minutes, that it might actually cut off, and I don't want it to cut off. So last question that we want to ask is for our viewers that'll be watching this on YouTube, what is your purpose, and at what point did you discover your purpose?
So, what is my purpose? My purpose is to inspire, to motivate, to transform. And I discovered that right after my trip to DC, and I had that encounter with that homeless lady. Because then I realized God has me here for a reason. And he allowed me to have that encounter with that woman early on in my life. And I think it kind of prepared me for the journey that I'm on now. And walking with Dr. King, having the opportunity to sit in meetings, and while I'm representing her, but also realize that I represent the King of Kings. And so when I'm sitting before CEOs and presidents and pastors, there are times when God will speak something to me to speak to them. Now, normally someone may say, well, you're in a business meeting, but God can use you in a business meeting because there's a reason why God opened that door. He may have used Dr. Bernice King to get me in the room, but he had another plan for me being in the room. And so one of the things that I will say to your listeners, because I don't want to get cut off, I was talking to a friend of mine today, and she said something to me that was so powerful. She said, with purpose comes process. So I want to say to all of those who are listening and those who will listen, with purpose comes process. That means there's a process. Jared, when you look at your life, you have been able to do some amazing things, but I know that you can attest to the fact that there's a process that you have gone through to get to where you are today. Nothing just happens. We've got to be willing to sacrifice, and everybody don't want to sacrifice. But in order to get to greatness, you got to be willing to give some things up. And that's the process part that we have to go through.
I love it. I love it. With purpose comes process. We got to add that to our curriculum. I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for taking out your time and blessing us today. You all, thank you so much for being on this webinar. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, go to www.upowerpurpose.org. You'll be able to find more information about each of our speakers. You'll be able to find out more information about the Atlanta Business Exchange with attorney Brian Poe. And we'll have a link to Elder Elisha Drain's website and on Amazon where you can purchase a copy of her book, Life Is. And YPP will actually be blessing some people with her book again really shortly. And so we definitely want to make sure that we are showing support to our speakers who have graced us with their presence this evening. I pray God's blessings upon each and every one of you all. Let's stay connected. Follow us on social media at You Power Purpose. You can follow me at Preach Jared on Instagram and Jared Sawyer Jr. on Facebook and on Twitter. Let's go forward and let us build a movement of next generation leaders that are living on purpose, living with purpose, living by purpose in every single area of our lives. Godspeed to each and every one of you. Have a blessed evening. Hope you've gotten over the hump of your week and that you've gotten the momentum to get you through Friday. Have an awesome, awesome, awesome rest of the week.
Good night.